This is week 13 and you've asked to look at creating the illusion of waves. Paint wise, palette wise, you're going to need a cerulean blue, ultramarine blue. This one here is indigo, but it's similar to Prussian blue, so Prussian blue or a darker blue. That's Thalio blue, Viridian green, and I have a turquoise. You will also be able to make your own turquoise as well using the cadmium yellow or a yellow and a blue or one of your greens. So you're also going to need your titanium white and some Payne's grey. So the first stage is to work out your composition. So you're going to be drawing onto, I've just gessoed a piece of card, and we're going to start by putting in a horizon line very, very near the top of your board, and then we're going to draw in 1, 2, 3 sections of waves. So to start off with, we're going to paint the horizon line, the skyline, and we're going to mix together your cerulean blue, your Prussian blue or your darker blue, your Payne's grey and titanium white. So you're just going to put that over that top strip, and you can dull it down afterwards if you feel it needs dulling down. Remember, it's your background, so you're going to be painting it not too brightly. And make sure you mix plenty of it as well, so that you can do it all in one go. You might want to put some tape down as well if your hand's not very steady. So I'm having to mix up a little bit more here. So just quickly putting my colours together again. Okay, you can come back to this. This is just your initial. We're starting off quite broadly in terms of shapes and colours to start off with. The next thing that I'd like you to do is, just as I said, if you need to, just go back over it and neutralise that a little bit by adding a little bit of Payne's grey to your mixture, and that will dull it down slightly. So as I said, you may want to put some masking tape down for a nice sharp edge. The next panel that we're going to do is the distant water, and we're going to mix together our Prussian blue and our Payne's grey. So it's quite a dark strip of water because it's on the horizon line and it's right in the distance. And it's quite a thin strip. I would recommend using masking tape. I haven't used it here, so I have sort of merged it a little bit. So just be aware that you want a really nice steady straight line here. So this area, next area, is the transition area, and you're going to use some of your Viridian green mixed with your cerulean blue and some of your darker Prussian blue or Thalio blue. So this is called your transition area because we're overlapping slightly, and we're going slightly more greeny blue. I'm not putting in any detail at the moment. This is all just placing down the bands of colour. So as we come down, we're going to go slightly lighter. So I'm going to add some white to my already mixed colour. And I'm going to blend that in using water to the area that I've already painted. What we're creating here is called aerial perspective. So you're showing a sense of depth through your use of light and tone. So all we're doing to start off with is establishing our different areas of colour and shape. And we're going to build this up gradually with lots of layers. So detail will come later. At the first we're going to come back in and I'm going to add a little bit more Viridian Green. And this is for the first real wave. I'm going to add my Prussian blue or Thalio blue, either or. And I'm going to come in with a slightly stronger bluey green here. And mix up plenty so that you don't have to keep coming back to mix. So now we're going to be coming on to the wave areas, shapes where we have the waves, and we're going to mix up for those cerulean blue, Prussian blue, your Viridian Green, and some Payne's Grey. We're also going to mix up a much deeper, brighter turquoise for where the waves curl and the light is hitting, shining through. So for that, I'm just going to add some white to my already mixed turquoise, and I'm just blending that in for where the waves are going to be rising. As I said, you're going to be building this up in layers. And just in where the foreground, where it's much darker, I'm going to put in more Payne's Grey for this foreground area. And because of the speed of the drying of this paint, hopefully by the time we come to the bottom here, your top area will be dry. So we're just putting in bands of the forms of the waves, and the foreground is obviously going to be bolder and darker. So if you have put tape down, remove it, and we're going to start to put in the actual impressions of the waves. So you're going to need a small medium round brush, and we're going to start in this distance strip here first, and we're going to use directional brush marks so that we have got very short small marks going back and forth in the Payne's grey for the darker ripples. And we're going to bring in a little bit of the white, titanium white, for the lighter areas on this backdrop area. And we're literally just doing very short directional brush strokes. You don't need too much water, so you're literally just doing little dabs to show the reflection of the light and the sea foam as well. Okay, so the next section we're going to go on to is this middle ground, and we're going to start putting in some darker values. So I'm going to mix up my cerulean blue, my basic wave colour. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue and some Payne's grey, and I'm going to start to add more sort of triangular shapes for the waves. Again, they're not large because we're in the middle ground, we're not in the foreground, so we're just suggesting them. They're almost like little triangles, so like little triangle shapes that you're putting in. And it's important that you think about the direction of your marks. So for this transition area here, you've got your cerulean blue mixed up with some ultramarine, with your Prussian blue, so it's nearly all of your colours, your Viridian green, your Thalio blue, and we're going to put in some yellow now, some of your cadmium yellow or whichever yellow you're using, and that will change the hue and start to make it more turquoise. And we're going to start to put in these sort of, again, these sort of triangular forms into this sort of middle area with this slightly more turquoisey green. The actual spray, which is on the edges of the waves, you need to use a very light mixture of using your titanium white with some of your yellow mixed in. I'm just going to show you how to apply the paint for that. So you can go to a medium round brush, and you're adding yellow just to make it look slightly warmer, and work out where your first wave is, so the actual edges of the wave, and start to put those in. Again, you're going to need to have a brighter white closer than this further wave, and it's probably not as big or as strong. So it's just the start of the wave. And then as we come to the middle ground, you've got a slightly bigger sea foam area, which goes all the way across. And in the very foreground, you've got your sea foam again, but you want to make it slightly more bold. There's going to be lots of patterns in these waves that you will see. So as you progress and put more detail in, you'll start to see sort of wavy lines that you can draw in that link together. You might want to use a very fine brush for that. So we're going to bring in some darker areas for the edges underneath the waves. So I'm going to just increase the contrast a bit more in my wave colour. So I'm going to add a little bit more Payne's Grey and just see if I can deepen it a bit more. And then just on the edge underneath where the sea foam is, I'm going to darken so that I'm showing that these waves are curling over or starting to sort of break. So that goes for all of them. Obviously when I'm a bit closer, I'm going a bit darker. On the very, very foreground, we can come back to that again, making that even darker and even stronger. So we've basically mapped out where things are, and we can start now to add the detail and think even more carefully about the direction of our brush strokes. So we're going to attempt to sort of show the flow and the movement of the water now. And as I said, you want to see this curling under here, so you're making sure that's nice and dark. And just work from left to right when you're doing this, just to sort of gradually bring it in all the way across. So we're now going to mix up a slightly different turquoise colour for the waves to show where the light is showing through. So you're going to use your Thalio blue, and if you have a green, ready mix your Viridian green, bring that in, and we're going to see if we can mix a more turquoisey, brighter green for this area here, which is going to be the focus of the painting. So we're going to think about the light source as well. Where is the light coming from? Where is it hitting? And for this painting, it's actually behind the wave. So it's coming in through this area here. So I'm going to mix up that same turquoise green and lighten it slightly. And I will be coming back to the sea foam as well. So I want you to now focus on the actual wave and think about how your brush strokes are going to be actually showing the direction and the form of the wave. So I'm curving my brush strokes to emulate the movement. And I'm bringing that all the way along. So you also need to think about the sea foam and how you want that to have elements of different colours in as well. So I'm going to bring in a titanium white with some Prussian blue, and I'm going to put that on to my sea foam so that it has got a sense of colour to it as well that's reflected from the waves. Again, think about the sort of direction and the type of brush. Experiment with different size brushes as well. This foreground area is going to need a lot more detail put in, but you'll do that last with a finer brush. So because of the speed of the drying, you're going to need to sort of produce your brush strokes quite fast and work quite swiftly to create that the correct sort of feeling of these waves. And the direction of them, and the sea spray as well. So you're going to have little smaller details of spray forming off of the tops of the waves. I'm just going to show you before I end the video, because of the time, how to put in a little bit more detail for the foam using a very, very fine brush, and just to start actually drawing in these sort of wavy lines which show the patterns that are forming. And again, this is probably the slowest part of it, and you do need to be patient, and it's not going to just suddenly have the effect that you want. So you need to build this up in layers gradually over time. But it's important that you think about light sources and directions of light, and also aerial perspective as well. So where do you want it to be darker and where do you want it to be lighter? You can also start to bring in some sort of slightly stronger, brighter greens. As I said, just sort of start to blend in these lighter areas to show the variance in the colours on the waves. So now that you've done your basic forms, you can really start to push the actual wave translucency. Okay, so we want to see a translucent feeling of the light coming through the waves. So that will happen by using slightly paler, lighter greens and turquoises, allowing some of your other paint to show through. And the last thing you'll probably do will be to revisit your sea foam and just to sharpen that up, and maybe add some warmer tones as well. So you're adding the little bit of yellow and just in the foreground here, the front, warm up the sea foam a little bit with some slightly warmer tones. Okay, I'm going to finish now. Thank you for watching.